Hello again, everyone at home, and welcome to TH2 TV, live, still from Malta. Now on the show with me, I have a guest, Erika Woolsey, hope I said your name right, who is the CEO of The Hydrus, a nonprofit that uses technologies such as virtual reality for ocean education. How cool is that?
It's really fun.
So, Erika, what you do is super interesting because you're somewhere between science, art, and technology, right?
Yes, there's a lot of cross-pollination.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do, because maybe not everyone at home knows.
Wonderful. So what the Hydrus is and why it was started is the need for translating scientific discovery, especially in our ocean, into public understanding. Okay. So I've been exploring coral reefs, for instance, around the world for most of my adult life, and they've been rapidly degrading for a lot of reasons, including climate change. And despite...
Climate change is real.
Climate change is real, and I've seen it firsthand, the effects. These beautiful ecosystems that are so important to human survival and so important to incredible biodiversity in our ocean that are suffering, and yet there just isn't a public outcry that leads to effective policy to combat and tackle this issue. And so one of the things that the Hydrus does is try to make the ocean more accessible to people. And we do that with visualizations and storytelling. And I mean, I spent a lot of time in academia and conducting research and going to conferences where I just talk to other scientists. And it's just such a joy to work with creative people and teachers and having that wonderful cross-pollination to address this problem. And it's been amazing, the reaction with the work we've been doing. We've done 3D models of coral reefs using underwater photogrammetry, and now we're doing virtual reality, and just the level of engagement that allows is spectacular. And I'm really excited with what VR can do in terms of generating empathy, bringing people to places they would not otherwise see, and increasing science and ocean literacy, which I think is really important.
It's funny you say that you work with creatives, and the way I'm seeing it, you're also a creative. People often don't think of scientists and people who work in technology as being creative, but how often in your job do you apply creativity?
I mean, even just as a research scientist, you have to think creatively to problem solve. And the scientific process itself it requires creativity, because you have to come up with questions, and you have to figure out how you're going to answer that question, and you observe carefully, and you sometimes manipulate or run observations or experiments. And I mean, it involves a lot of problem solving and storytelling. And I'm honored to be associated with creatives, especially here at THU, and just being in the same bucket, I think, is really exciting.
Yeah, we're also very excited to have you as our night this year, because it's something very different. Plus, we're on an island, and we have a marine biologist, and that just sounds right,
Yeah, it's a pretty good setting for me. I feel very at home here.
Right. I mean, we were looking at the sea earlier, thinking, "Oh my God, there's a storm coming, our way," and the only one who wasn't worried was Erika. So.
Oh yeah, I've seen worse than this out at sea. Yes.
Right. Actually, yeah. When you're at sea, sometimes you probably have to find creative solutions, even just to, get out of situations that could be unsafe.
Yes, and I think it comes down to just having a flexible mind and being able to be nimble in what you decide to do.
So how closely do you work with these people who then, because I'm assuming that you're very talented, but you don't actually develop these virtual realities yourself,
No,
right?
I definitely do not have the skill set for that, and that's why I need this multidisciplinary team. And so, I mean, having tech professionals, having partners like Lenovo and like Horizon Productions makes it possible for me to translate my background and expertise in this particular field into something tangible and experiential that anyone can view, because I mean, it's a symbiotic relationship if you want to go back to biology. We work together in this wonderful partnership to make something spectacular.
Yeah, so as you know, at THU, we call our attendees, our knights, and all of us, we're all part of a tribe. And over the past few years, we've been trying to change the idea of this tribe, which initially was just a tribe of artists and creatives, and now we're trying to change it to creators, because an artist needs to work with a developer and a programmer, and they need to work with a businessman to sell their idea, and they need to work with a marketeer as well. So there's different fields, different people, different approaches, and you're just saying that you also get to work in a very multidisciplinary environment.
Yes.
So the idea is, how do you...
And within any ecosystem or within any habitat, you have different roles of different species, of the flora, and that makes it more resilient and able to withstand disturbance. It also makes it more likely to thrive, over the long term. And I think you can see that here with THU, and you have so many different perspectives. And I mentioned cross-pollination earlier, but when creative minds get ideas, they can really run with it. And I've only been here a day or two, and I'm already getting sparked by different things and going in all sorts of different directions. I'm just, buzzing, and these are things I never would have come up with on my own.
Yeah, in fact, we're on this tiny island in the center of the Mediterranean, and we've brought 1,000 creatives and creators on this island, and now we've just kind of left them to mingle and create together.
Yeah, and it's funny, also coming from an ecology perspective, the idea of islands is really fascinating in that type of isolation makes it so that there's more speciation on islands than in areas with a lot more dispersal. So you have, on islands, you have these species evolve that are just so unusual to anywhere else in the world.
That are more unique, you mean?
That are more unique, and I mean, island biogeography is fascinating for that reason. Because you have that particular isolation, which has its drawbacks, but also means that you have an incredible diversity and things that are incredibly unusual.
Our previous home for the tribe was Troia in Portugal, and it was a peninsula, but everybody thought it was an island, which was fantastic because it was this 15 kilometers of land, into the sea, and we used to go by ferry boat to the peninsula to not go to not drive all the way around. So as soon as you're on a ferry and then you land somewhere, you just feel like you're on an island, right? And it was interesting because that was the best part of it was that the whole community was there. It was very united. It was very close. And we were trying to, since the community was growing as well, and we wanted change and we wanted to step out of our comfort zone, we were looking at different locations where we could move the festival, the whole experience. And it was really hard to find a place that seemed right. And then, Malta came along with its history and, and this is actually an island, so we made it. We're finally on a real island.
I'm really glad that it's on an island and I could be here for this. And I also love the juxtaposition between this ancient city and this emerging technology. I think it's really fabulous.
You work a lot with technology as well, and with new methods, you have to be very creative to create these immersive ocean experiences that you work on. So it is interesting. There's a big contrast between the future and a very historical past.
Yeah, it's quite a fun setting, and I love that THU is sort of paying tribute to that setting.
Do you feel like, in your job, when you're working with all these different kind of people, do you feel like they often maybe struggle to understand how important they are to each other?
I have not found that. I have been maybe I've been lucky, but maybe that's just how it is.
It's great. We don't have to tell sad stories.
In that everyone I've worked with sort of across fields and disciplines and skill sets, I think everyone gets really excited when they sort of get let out of their yard, and get to meet and mingle with and work with people from other backgrounds that offer something to an idea you find really important and really dear, and to find that there are so many other ways to mobilize that idea. And I think it's just thrilling more than anything. So far,
that's
no
good,
frustration.
because in our experience, often creatives and artists especially, because technology is also, evolving, they tend to be able to get a lot of the stuff done on their own, especially the newer generations. They're, they're very multi-talented, I actually once interviewed this guy for THU who had so many skills that he was complaining he couldn't get a job because when he went to recruitment fairs, people were like, okay, you're good at all of this, but what is it exactly that you do?
Oh.
And he was like, I don't know, if I'm good at all of it, then why not, you know? Like,
yeah, so he's a generalist, but they wanted a specialist.
well, no, he just had a very varied portfolio. Like, he'd go from like 18th century style paintings to very futuristic stuff.
That's
and for people,
quite a
it's
cool
very hard
range.
to focus. And I see it in different fields as well. I mean, even just at a doctor, you'll go there and you'll be like, oh, sorry, I have, you know, shoulder pain. And the doctor will be like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm a knee expert. I mean, that happens now. Like, people are getting more and more focused.
Yeah.
Because it's also a way to, I guess, stand out of the crowd, like to have something that you're better at, so a specialization, let's say, of some kind. But that kind of pushes people to be more isolated.
Yes.
And we were a bit afraid that even like, you know, the fact that we're on an island always looks like it's just not very well connected. It's a bit isolated. But then it's a challenge that, you know, you can try to overcome as a team.
Well, I think, I mean, if you had 1,000 people here at THU, I might only be able to work very effectively with a handful of them. And so a lot of that comes rather than just like randomly selecting a creative and trying to do something with them, is just, you know, talking to as many people as possible. Again, that cross-pollination and seeing where the conversations go and seeing where that overlap is. So a lot of it really is luck, I suppose. And I was really lucky to find, you know, a team like Lenovo and like Horizon Productions that were, you know, totally in it with me. But
Lenovo is obsessed with supporting, you know, all of us, even THU.
Yeah.
Like, they're even our sponsor.
Totally obsessive with being
like,
supportive. It's crazy.
They're like, it's like, please, can you stop being that supportive? What's your agenda? You know, like, no, they just seem to want to.
What's your angle?
Want to help out.
Oh yeah, they've been an amazing partner, and I think in a lot of areas in any kind of career, you just have to keep doing what you know you are good at and that you believe in, and eventually the right people will find you. And I've been very lucky that that's happened with me.
You think it's a matter of luck? Like, is there a way, do you have like any advice for people who want to like maybe find a way to connect with the right people? Like, especially when it's so specialized, like what you do is very particular. And I'd never heard of it before, you know, I'd never heard of anyone else who does it. So.
Yeah, I never imagined that it would turn into this. It's not really a standard career, and definitely not the sort of career path I was on when I was, you know, doing my master's and PhD research. But I think,
where were you hoping to end up? And
well, what's interesting is, you know, the career path of a scientist is to, you know, become a research professor generally. And, you know, people split off and do different things, but I was very lucky to be in a position where I could have that flexibility to basically create my own job, because I knew that I loved science and I was very passionate about communicating science, especially regarding oceans and climate change. And I knew that I wanted to have a human element to it and really try to make emotional human connections. And it's harder to do that when you're in academia. And so starting to work with teachers, starting to work with designers to help me tell those stories, and learning about what virtual reality can do.
Yeah,
I mean, I was totally sold, especially like underwater environments and virtual reality are just perfect together because you're totally immersed, you can look all around. And I mean, even though we're all here on an island, I mean, how many of us are going to go under the water while we're here?
I'm not going.
Yeah. And people even who live on coastlines don't get to explore ocean environments. And people in the
plus going underwater is a big deal. I mean,
it is a big deal.
I'm not even a great swimmer, but last year
yeah.
I went diving, and no one believed that I could ever do that because I don't even enter the water on my own. But I was talking to someone who was like, you know, this guy was in Sri Lanka, and this guy just went, oh, you know, you're so lucky, you've traveled so much in the world and stuff. And he's like, I've only seen the water, because he was a diver. And in that moment, I was sitting there at the beach going, yeah, but the water makes up like what, 80% of planets, so you've seen stuff that I'll never see. And then he's like, oh, you should go diving. And I was like, yeah, I'll go diving. Like, I had a moment, you know.
That's a great.
But it's true, like you get to explore not just, you know, above land, but also underwater, and it's a part of the world that not everyone can easily access.
Exactly, and it's very out of sight, out of mind, and that's part of why.
And it's scary. I mean, like, let's face it.
Right now it looks a little scary.
No, right now it's terrible. She was also telling me a story earlier about how she's been in the sea with lightning and thunder. I mean, actually, to me that's just. Yes. Actually, if you want to give people the advice at home, you know, the advice you gave me, in case you're ever at sea and lightning or thunder takes place, you know, what should they do?
Well, mainly I was disagreeing with what you thought we should do, which
I thought we should go underwater.
I think your suggestion was to keep going deeper. I would suggest just getting out of the water as quickly as possible and devoting all your energy to getting out of the water. I feel like going down deep is maybe a short-term solution.
True. So no, I'm curious to know, like, how and when did you realize that you could recreate what you saw underwater outside? Because I mean, you're the CEO of the Hydrus, right? And it was your idea, and you started all of this. So I mean, when did that happen? Like at some point you're there and you're like, oh, I could actually, you know, it's a crazy idea.
Yeah. Well, it started actually with creating 360 photospheres, so still photographs that are just 360 that you can put in like a cardboard viewer and with your smartphone. And with the technology that was pioneered by like Google Oceans and the Catlin Sea View survey. And I found that when I would carry that viewer around and show people, like they were astounded and they couldn't believe what I was getting to see underwater. And I'd been talking about the oceans for many years at that point, and I never got that kind of curiosity and enthusiasm as I did when I had that experience to share with people. And so I started doing a little bit more research, and I learned about, you know, the work that's being done at places like Stanford University, where it's been found that VR has the ability to help generate empathy, especially towards environmental issues, and might also be a really good medium for science learning compared to traditional methods. And so, you know, once I was convinced that this is the direction I wanted to go in because it was so exciting and so promising, I looked into a specialized camera called the Virtual 2, which shoots underwater in stereoscopic 4K, and it's 360. And when I saw sample footage of this, it's like, oh my God, it feels like I'm actually diving, because it's three-dimensional. It looks like things are coming out at you when a turtle swims by. It's high resolution, and I mean, to me, it was the best I'd ever seen in terms of recreating.
You started shooting with that yourself?
No, I brought a team with me, and we started, because it wasn't a cheap camera to rent.
No, I can imagine.
I did a bunch of fundraising, assembled a team, and went on an expedition to collect footage of coral reefs in Palau. Which is an island in Micronesia and has relatively healthy reefs that I wanted to share with everybody rather than a degraded reef.
Yeah, well, you can share the healthy one first, and then the degraded one to then talk about climate change and tell people it's real.
Oh yeah, and I don't like to focus on the negative. I think it's more about, this is what the ocean and the world can look like. Isn't it worth protecting? Look how beautiful it is. Look how fascinating and intricate it is. And it needs protecting.
So were there any challenges you faced as a team, initially?
Oh yes.
Do you want to share some?
Well, I mean, looking back on it now, like the analogy I use is that I was like Mr. Magoo walking into a construction site, and I'm a marine biologist. I've never run a production before in my life. And so I was very lucky.
So you were also producing it then?
Yeah, I was an executive producer. I did a lot of the writing. I also starred in it with this VR experience. I'm your dive buddy. So I was diving along with the camera. And two people in particular really saved the production. One, a guy named Rick Miskiv, who was the camera operator, and he's an incredible diver and underwater photographer, and he just collected beautiful footage. We had manta rays swarming all around us, and it was just a gorgeous, magical time of year to be there. And the other is Jason McGuigan, who's I've worked with Lenovo and Horizon Productions, and we would have surely imploded if he wasn't there to sort out all of the technical issues that I had with not only the creative side of things, but also the technical knowledge to pull stuff like that off.
We've started realizing that as well, and last year we introduced the B-sides at THU, so like the business talks, and this year we are also introducing the T-sides, so technology-related talks, and we have a lot of our main talks, in fact, are people who are not famous, like, they're the people who are in the background in production teams, the people whose names you don't hear as often, but then they're also extremely important because, like you said, I mean, they saved your project.
Yeah, they really did.
So that's the thing. Sometimes people assume that we speak different languages. Like I'm an artist, and I don't speak tech, and tech doesn't speak business. And then in the end, I guess there is a way around it. Like there is a way to work together as a community. I mean, you figured it out, right? So.
I think I've done an okay job. Yeah, it's been such a fun process, and I'm really proud of my team and what we've been creating, and so thankful to have had this chance.
Is it the same team that you've worked out with, throughout?
In Palau? Yeah, same team. And so in fact, Jason, who came with us to Palau, is here at THU, and he and his team created this amazing VR piece for THU where it's like this collaborative art installation in VR. So we should definitely check that out.
Oh, the gallery, you mean? With
is that what it is?
Yeah, we have the Golden Ticket Challenge every year. So people submit their pictures, and then we have a jury of people who select a winner, and then the winner wins a ticket to THU. But this year we decided to have like an audience award as well, so people can visit that gallery. And I haven't been yet, but yeah, apparently it's really cool. So you can see all the artwork and then vote for your favorite. So no, that's great. It's extremely interesting what you do. And what project are you currently working on?
So currently it's this VR project, and what's exciting is we're wrapping it up. We're expected to be completely finished with this experience by January of 2019. So what we're showing here is sort of an early version. So we still have a few things to sort out, but I am excited about distributing it at conferences, in classrooms. So through this partnership with National Geographic, we're bringing VR into middle school classrooms to
I wish I could go to school today.
Know,
it's so much cooler than when we were in school.
I know, there's so much amazing technology that's accessible, and VR is getting more and more accessible. It's amazing how just in a few years, like the price points have dropped so much and the technology has improved so much. And I'm so excited to see what it's going to be like in 5 years.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like, actually, I can't imagine. But, like, how realistic is the experience that you can give people with, with this VR?
Well, I'll tell you a story. When we were in Palau, we got to meet a man named Francis Turibiong, who was the first Palauan to dive in Palau. And he's probably in his 70s or 80s now. And we showed him some rough stitch footage, and this was a rough stitch. And he was looking around amazed, and he said it was just like diving. So I've had a lot of divers tell me that the footage really felt like they were submerged and underwater. And that's how it felt for me when I first viewed the demo footage of this camera. And to me, that made all the difference. I wanted to feel as real as possible.
I feel like sometimes when you're working on a long-term project, technology evolves so fast, it's hard to keep to pace with it, and it's hard to keep things at their best. So have you guys changed a lot of things during the work in progress? Like, how long did it take you to realize all of this?
Well, that might not be a question I can answer, because I am a bit naive to these changes in technology, and that's why I need people like Jason who keep track of that stuff. And I've been able to understand a few things that he's sort of tackled and improved, but I'm sure there are 100 things I'm not even aware of that he's doing, keeping in line with where the technology is going. I mean, an example is it started as a 360 video, and plain and simple, but he's integrated CGI and animation, and we're hoping to also add a game engine element so that the viewer can have more agency and interact with the space more.
Yeah, that would be fun, but also scary at the same time. Like, sometimes I watch, even when you go to the cinema now, like, special effects have evolved so much that you watch stuff on the screen and it's scary. Even watching, what is it, the Beauty and the Beast? Like, the
you got
talking
scared by
teapot.
Beauty and the Beast?
Yes, I did, because the talking teapot looks really real, and so there's like everything is so realistic that when it talks, it's kind of creepy. No,
well, I promise
okay,
there are no talking teapots in our film, so maybe it won't scare you.
Yeah, but like a shark or
Well, we have a lot of sharks,
fishes
but what's interesting is there are very few sharks in the ocean that are dangerous to people. There are hundreds or even thousands of shark species that are just basically fish and want nothing to do with us.
Well, where I went diving, we had those black tip reef sharks.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm kind of like, fear is contagious, right? So everybody else was relaxed, and I was like, okay, if they're not worried, and none of us want to die, right? So they're not worried, why should I be worried? So that kind of helped me calm down. But still, it's...
Yeah. And there's a scene in our film that's filmed at this famous dive site called Blue Corner, where you're basically poised on the corner of a reef, and huge schools of reef sharks are swimming by. And so I think you'll appreciate that, because it's also
film.
safe. It's in the film.
It's something you actually filmed, or was it recreated with animation?
No, we filmed it in Palau.
So somebody was actually
we were there.
Over there.
Yeah, we were there. I was there. Rick was there. The dive team was there. And I mean, on one hand, you get to view these places that you might not otherwise see, but also if someone is scared of sharks, which in this case is unnecessary because these sharks aren't dangerous, it could be a really great way to overcome that fear.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's just the same fear you have with everything that you just don't know, right?
Yeah, you're afraid of what you don't know. And for me, I mean, I feel discomfort if I'm just floating on the surface, for instance, and I don't know what's below me, and I can't see what's below me. But when I'm submerged and I can see everything, it's not scary at all. It feels more freeing and calm than anything. Even if there are sharks swimming by, it just
I think
it
it's a matter
natural.
of getting used to that environment and to seeing the things you're seeing. Like, in general, it's that like the first time, you know, you're in water and you touch something with your foot and you're like, oh my God, what is that? It's just scary.
Yeah.
Or it feels funny, you know, and then you put on your goggles and look and it's just, you know.
It's like turning on the light and all the monsters go away, you know?
Yeah, exactly. No, so it's extremely cool. In fact, I'm really looking forward to your talk and also to like trying the film. And can we expect to see it anywhere else, or just like, do I have to go back to middle school basically?
Well, in the spring of 2019, we hope to release it more widely so that as many people can view it as possible. And our goal is to take over 1 million people on a virtual dive.
Okay, I hope I'm in that million then.
I hope so too. I'll email you the link.
All right. Thank you very much for being with us on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you people at home for watching, and we'll be back soon with more from THU TV Live in Malta. Bye.